Hello everyone. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about antipsychotics. I've mentioned them before in different videos. For those who have not seen some of my other videos about psychiatric medications, I was on antipsychotics. I was forced to take antipsychotics, specifically a very unpopular psych med back in the late 80s called Trilofan, which is its brand name, and its trade name, I guess, is Provenazine. Anyway, it was a very, very awful, horrible drug. I really did not have any fun on it. It was pretty much like experiencing the subjective experience, my feelings after being on antipsychotics, as though I was being poisoned. And the experience was, subjectively speaking, was like the death of personality, in that I no longer had access to my full range of intelligence and thinking. None of my quote psychic abilities seem to work anymore. Is pretty much makes you, the drug will retard your intelligence and make you stupid. Okay. So what I'd like to do, there's very recently, on March 16th, 2008, an article was published in the Oregon paper, The Register Guard, and this is in Eugene, Oregon. And what I'd like to do for you folks is to read this article to you, so you can see just how evil antipsychotics really are. So without further ado, in the early the article was written by a man named Dr. Chuck Arford, and I'm going to put all the links and stuff like that in the sideboard on the description on the right for you guys to click on and check out. So here we go. In the early 1990s, a new class of drugs promised to revolutionize the treatment of schizophrenia and other mental disorders. Known as atypical antipsychotics, drugs such as Clozaril, Zyprexa, and Risperdal largely replaced older medications such as Thorazine, Haldol, and Prolixin. Research and advertising sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry led to the widespread belief that the newer medications were indisputably safer, more effective, and well worth the additional billions of dollars in taxpayer money. And of course, pharmaceutical profits soared. Since then, the life expectancy of those treated in community mental health centers has plunged to an appalling 25 years, less than average. Life expectancy may have fallen by as much as 15 years since 1986. Indications are that the death rate continues to accelerate in what may be ranked as one of the worst public health disasters in U.S. history. The toxicity of antipsychotic medications, also known as neuroleptics, is thoroughly documented. Atypical antipsychotics initially seemed less hazardous because they produced fewer movement disorders, such as the tardive dyskinesia and stuff like that. We know now that the newer drugs lead to cardiovascular disease. Okay, that means they're bad for your heart and for your circulation, which is by far the leading killer of those in the public mental health system. People who need mental health services already suffer from high rates of cigarette smoking, lack of exercise, substance abuse, poor nutrition, homelessness, and poor access to health care. Adding medications that are like these, that's my emphasis, adding medications like antipsychotics is like pouring gasoline on a fire. This lethal combination is almost certainly driving the spiraling death rate. Advances in brain imaging techniques show that antipsychotic medications cause brain damage. Okay? They cause brain damage. Damage done to your brain and to your personality that was not there before you took these drugs. Animal and human studies link the drugs to shrinkages in the cerebral cortex, which is home of the higher functionings. That's the seat of your intelligence and your lofty ideals and all that stuff. One study of monkeys given either older or newer neuroleptic meds, that's Haldol or Zyprexa, right, in doses equivalent to those given to human beings, showed an 11% to 15% shrinkage of the left parietal lobe. Damage that causes brain damage, drugs that cause brain damage almost invariably reduce life expectancy. And going back to, I don't know how many of you remember my meditation videos, but I mentioned that scientific studies have proven that when you meditate, you build your brain up. It actually increases your brain growth and develops a circuit which helps keep you calm and relaxed mentally and emotionally in the left prefrontal cortex. So I'm not entirely sure, I don't have the imaging stuff here exactly in relation to the left prefrontal cortex where the left parietal lobe is, but we're talking about the left hand closer to the front, to the top of the head, right? It's responsible for your deep thoughts. Meditation increases that gray matter and increases the density of your brain, while antipsychotics decrease the density of your brain and retard spiritual and mental growth. Marketing campaigns for atypical antipsychotic drugs target new groups of patients, including the elderly and children. And in the old days, or at least in the 80s and early 90s, antipsychotics were hardcore. They really were a kind of last resort. They weren't something you gave to someone immediately. You would only give someone an antipsychotic if they were inpatient and psychotic, which is something I've experienced myself. But that was why you would put someone on antipsychotics, as if they are a serious danger to themselves or others. And now basically the stuff's being given out or prescribed outpatient to children and the elderly. Public television recently reported that as many as 1 million children have been newly diagnosed with bipolar disorder and thus may receive neuroleptic medications, same as I was when I was 14. And this does not include children treated with antipsychotics for other disorders. The damage to developing brains cannot be overemphasized. Years ago, the Soviet Union was condemned for giving neuroleptic medication to political dissidents. Okay, so if you were in the Soviet Union back then and you were like, communism sucks, we should be capitalists, they would imprison you and force you to take antipsychotics, because it was known that the stuff would destroy your brain. It would basically, they were trying to chemically force a change in intelligence and personality, a kind of reverse brainwashing, where we're not going to try to make you something different. We're going to take away that which you already are. The damage to, as I said, so anyway, in Soviet Union, years ago, the Soviet Union put political dissidents on neuroleptics, and we condemned them, okay? And we are now giving more lethal, more powerful versions of these medications to our children. And for those of you who don't remember, very recently, Abilify was okayed by the FDA for children. So that means Abilify, a powerful antipsychotic, a brain-damaging drug, was okayed to use in children who have developing minds and brains. Recent studies published in the New England Journal of Medicine and elsewhere demonstrate that the newer drugs are no more effective than the older ones in reducing psychotic symptoms. And patients stop taking the new drugs like Zyprexa or Seroquel at the same high rate as the old ones, like Haldol and Trilofan, because they do not like the way the drugs affect their lives. While medications are effective in relieving symptoms in the short run, research indicates that people suffering from psychosis recover more quickly and completely without medication. Of course, this is what happened to me. I've been off meds for years, and I haven't been psychotic in a very long time. Incredibly, one study showed that those not taking medications had 8 times the recovery rate of those who remained medicated. And you'll find that there are some people here on the internet who freely talk about schizophrenia and bipolar, and they're on medications, and they're not in recovery. They're not fully recovered. They don't talk about it, having bipolar or schizophrenia, as though it were beyond them, as though they've moved on. It happened to them, and now they're healed. They're on meds, and they continue to suffer from their symptoms. For those of you familiar with my videos, you know that it's been over 10 years since I've been, it's been over 15 years since I've been on psychiatric medications. And I am now over 10 years depression-free, suicide-free, self-injury-free, and schizophrenia, hearing voices free as well. So my personal life story plays out with the scientific research that shows that people who are not on medication actually tend to really get better, more on permanent results. Pretty awful drugs, guys. Pretty evil drugs, antipsychotics. I dare say that putting children on these drugs is pretty unethical. It skates the edge of neglect and child abuse, really. That's all for now. Take care.